How Females Are Represented in Comics and Graphic Novels, a video presentation by Kelly Buckroyce. Okay, so some of the criticisms may be obvious, but let's take a closer look. Throughout much of the 20th century, the persistent stereotype has been the slim but well-endowed, typically Caucasian young female who is objectified by the graphic construction of her body and identity, even when empowered as a superhero. These representations force both male and female readers to acknowledge their own sexual responses, while at the same time privileging the male readers. This design archetype embeds the male gaze phenomenon common across artistic media. But this hypersexualization has not been restricted to female characters. Amongst male superheroes, we see excessively muscular bodies squeezed into colorful, form-fitting clothing more typical of female fashions. So we have a juxtaposition of hypersexualized male and female characters, especially within the superhero genre. But females are often incorporated as token characters, or when they do occupy leadership positions, their stories typically include a strong male supporting character who can sometimes overshadow them. Stephanie Brown made a formidable Robin, but Batman extended her no memorial after her death, as he has for fallen male Robins. And Spider-Man's marriage to Mary Jane was revised entirely out of the storyline. Objectified female characters, as well as gender ambiguity in manga, commonly serve as graphic and narrative devices for exploring social tensions relating to traditional and dominant male roles in Japanese society. Design elements such as exaggerated eyes, revealing clothing, body positioning, and movement affect this overt feminization. But as subjects of heroine stories, female manga characters are often constructed with greater agency and autonomy compared to their counterparts in the Western superhero genre. Race and culture transect gender constructions, even within the context of reimagined characters and scenarios. There is a persistent risk of exoticism replacing caricature. But let's look a little farther back. Whoa, that's way too far back. But you know, her boobs may have actually been a superpower. Willendorf woman is believed to have been an icon of fertility in Paleolithic Europe. She is an early example of the iconographic representation of social values expressed through the construction of women's bodies in artistic media. Art and media reinforce social structures and relationships, with women's bodies having historically been a device, objectifying them through control of the representation of their bodies and narratives. Early 20th century suffrage propaganda made extensive use of comic-style art on both sides of the argument. One important outcome was female creators accessing public space to express alternate roles for women. Pro-suffrage artwork depicted women with agency and autonomy, and with social and economic value that extended beyond the home. Anti-suffrage propaganda focused on stripping away women's femininity and reasserting male authority in negotiating and reinforcing the fundamental social structures that were being challenged. And those insufferable suffragettes were turned into a joke. Dark humor veiling an even darker threat. Similar risk of change is driving the present Gamergate controversy, targeting female gaming and comics creators who are challenging stereotypes. Through the 1940s and 50s, female characters were limited to a few stereotypes that reflected a society coming to terms with the social changes, after the large-scale movement of women into the workforce to replace men who had gone to serve in the world wars. Even here we see the beginnings of what would become the hypersexualized design archetype, which expressed a new tension for female readers: how to retain femininity while aspiring towards strength and independence. In the 1960s, romance became a predominant aspect in the construction of female characters, including within the superhero genre. But this period also saw more conservative body imaging in response to the Comics Code implemented in 1954. While these represented new possibilities for female lives, these stories continued to reflect social structures and relationships that reinforced male authority and saw women attain empowerment vis-à-vis males, and still in subordinate roles in contrast to their male counterparts. Feminist political tension continued to be explored through the 1970s, and the 1980s took hypersexualization to a whole nother level for both female and male characters. The 1980s also saw a shift to serialized stories, laying the groundwork for graphic novels as they had in Japan. Although serialization allowed for greater complexity in the development of story arcs, authentic representations of female lives and experience were still wanting. Of course, part of the issue has been the dominance of male creators within the comics industry. In reaction to the domination of the superhero genre and the male orientation within the mainstream industry, a robust independent comics and graphic novels industry has emerged, giving female creators and publishers a better space to work. More recent female characters in comics and graphic novels have challenged stereotypes of character and design, depicting much broader dimensions of female experience. Wonder Woman has been transformed, and both Thor and Captain Marvel have been reimagined as women, although still representing the Amazonian archetype. X-Men comics have consistently cast female characters in leadership roles, though graphic depiction tends towards hypersexualization and exoticism. And there's been effort to recreate more authentic minority characters without exoticizing them. New narratives give us character and design archetypes that represent authentic female lives and experiences, and stories with greater dimension that explore issues of sexuality and gender identity, family and intimate relationships, women's health, sexual and social trauma, cultural minority experience, including refugee and resettlement, characters protesting exploitation, and stories about female leadership and adventure. Many of these works incorporate a journal-like style that lends the capacity for deeper exploration and more complex narrative development. And notably, it's not just female creators, but also male creators who have given us some incredibly complex female characters. These examples represent a true transformation towards empowerment that is different in quality and context from the transformations that superheroes must go through to attain their powers, and have been accompanied with new design archetypes such as colors and panel composition that support the journal-type style. Which brings me to Ms. Marvel 2013. Kamala Khan is one of the most important characters in comics history, challenging persistent stereotypes in the Ms. Marvel character and the overall superhero genre, themes she grapples with in her own storyline as a superhero comics fan who ultimately rejects a hypersexualized version of the Ms. Marvel identity when it's thrust upon her. Now, I have to admit, I did not like the Ms. Marvel story, but that's my distaste with the whole superhero genre overall. It wasn't Kamala. I loved her. And I can appreciate her importance. Not only does Kamala challenge design and gender archetypes, but she's also a female cultural minority character who is neither a caricature nor an exotic interpretation. There's so much more I could say on this topic, This video presents an overview and synthesis of some of the resources that are out there, but please check out the credits to connect with more. Oh, and stay tuned for my next video that's in the works. It's on females in film and television. And Sue Storm was the first blah 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 blah. Thank you. Sorry guys, that one's on me. This is the sound of my voice talking. Bueller, Bueller, Bueller. So heavy, must activate superpower. Can't catch me, can't catch me. And this represented a true love.